I'm so grateful for your presence tonight, so thanks for making time. This is an important endeavor, and I do very much thank the work of the School Visioning Committee. They've been working very hard for over a year, and in particular to Tom McGill, who's helped to put some of the information together, and particularly for Amy Canella, who's been our chair through all of this, fearless leader, and great presenter. I think you're really going to enjoy tonight. There'll be a lot of information that's presented in a very beautiful way. So why don't we start with a prayer? Put everything before Jesus. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Just pause to try to imagine God looking back at you with love. He created you with that purpose, and He always delights in you and chooses you. Before Jesus left this earth, He said to those around Him, "All power in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always, until the end of the age." Heavenly Father, we're so grateful to you for this beautiful, magnificent day, for the gift of life, the promise of eternal life in your Son Jesus and the Holy Spirit, for this wonderful faith community, for our parish and school, and all of our endeavors to try to reach out and to serve. So we thank you for the gift of Christ, who continues to be in our midst, who unites this parish, both from the past and into the future, and here in the present moment. So we ask His wisdom, His grace, His love, His mercy, His tenderness and unity. We place us all in His hands, into your hands. Through Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Okay, so SVC members, the School Visioning Committee, are parents and parishioners. Okay? And so I was having a conversation about my son, because this took a lot of effort to get done. And it was great and fun, and we would have had meetings till midnight if we didn't have other obligations. But Gus says, "Mom, how much are you getting paid for this?" Because I don't know if you have kids, but they're all interested in money, right? How much do you make? Enough, is what we say. But I said, "Well, Gus, nothing. I do this because I love you." And he says, "You're doing this for free? This is a lot of time." I said, "Yes, you give your time, talent, and treasure to things that are important to you." And he asked me for my American Express, because I think he had some Fortnite skins that seemed very important to him. But this is what I really feel about coming up to Christ the King, whether it's the school or the parish. I don't come up and volunteer because I feel like I have to or I feel guilty. I actually want to be here helping and engaging, so I'm just honored to have had the opportunity. We all on the SBC want to make the CTK, parish and school, the best that it can be. And I have a couple disclosures. And I see the good Dr. Murphy back there, so he is actually going to understand when I say this. We lecture to medical students all the time, and we're the smartest people in the room on that day, because I'm a board-certified internist, a rheumatologist, and I'm talking to first-year medical students. So I always know more than they do. I do not know more than the majority of you in this room on these topics, okay? So forgive me if I present anything that's not perfect or a little bit off. It was all done with the best of intentions. I am also undoubtedly not the most pious person in the room. I look at these antique medals, and I have some, and I think about the faith of the little old grandma that has her medal and she rubs it, and I really want that. So if you're out there and you kind of struggle, I'm not here to preach to anyone. If, you know, we're all welcome at this table. We all come as we are. So thank you for being here. And there's a lot of information. So we're going to go kind of fast to get through it all. If you have any additional questions, any of the committee members will stay after, and we can have additional meetings. So, whenever I give a talk, I have to sit down and think, how did I get here? I bet I had a good idea. And so, on this case, a couple years ago, we had a bunch of teachers leaving. And I thought, why are all the teachers leaving? And I know I trust Mr. Segrell, and everyone had a good reason to leave, but there was a lot of teachers. So I was like, do we have a problem? Because, you know, the parents all kind of talk, and that we have a problem, maybe we don't. So I started to look for the answers. And this is what happens on my computer at work, because it's like, Amy Canella, you have a problem, and diagnose it and hit this button. And I'm pushing the button and I'm still not getting any answers because I don't understand it. So down the hall, I have this great colleague. His name is Jeff Deal. He's an immunologist, and he was on the Archdiocese Board of Education. And in 2005, St. Cecilia's had a grim reality, and they were at risk of going under, their school was. And so I said to Jeff, how did this all work out? And he said, we did this great exercise. We formed the Board of Education had a subcommittee, and we sort of looked at all the finances and tried to figure it out, and he gave me this 30-page document, and I actually read it, and I thought, well, that's really interesting. I learned a lot. So my sisters and my brother took Mr. Segrell and Father Cook to lunch, and we had this wonderful discussion about, do we really have a problem? And Mr. Segrell and Father Cook said, maybe we have a problem. We kind of like how Jeff Thiel and Cathedral did all this work, and so Father formed a committee. And then he asked me to be in charge, and I thought, I really stepped in at this time, but it's been wonderful. So what Father and the SBC kind of came up with as our charge was to comprehensively summarize the relationship between the parish and the school, identify and analyze the school's current and future needs, and suggest to Father Cook an action plan to address the needs identified for the school within the framework of the parish, okay? So, if you are an SBC committee member, could you stand up? So I would like to thank you all for all the work that you did. I love the talk we gave last night, but I was remiss in one aspect. I did not ask the teachers present to please stand up. So Mrs. Took was here last night, and Ms. Ritter. So if you are a teacher in the school, could you please stand up? We went down this path, so we're going to hope to not let you down. And then for the non-school families, I hope you all know Mr. Segrell is our administrator. He's our principal. And Mrs. Becker was here last night, too.
And Mrs. Hightower.
And Mrs. Hightower. So again, our workflow, this was modeled after St. Cecilia's. We had closed meetings with invited guests, so people could feel incredibly free to have open conversation, and then sometimes it was not really contentious, but just we talked about difficult topics. And we are advisory only, we stay in our lane. So we don't evaluate or make recommendations on educational curricula or scheduling at the school. We don't have access to, nor will we discuss or opine upon any confidential matters related to school or parish personnel. So those are kind of the ground rules. You guys, we can talk about whatever you want tonight, but we will adhere to these rules. So we had these topics really well laid out. Foundations of the parish and the school. What is a Catholic school all about? I didn't grow up in going to a Catholic school, so I kind of was new to this. We really wanted to hear feedback from both the families and the teachers, so we spent a significant amount of time developing surveys and analyzing them. We looked at how the parish fit into the archdiocese and into the whole religion and how the school fit in as well. We looked at all the different committees and financial structure. We dialed into the educational trust, and we had a trust member come and talk to us. We really were interested in the teacher salary and benefits, and Mr. Segrell went to great length to get all of that information for us. We want to know what the school needs were, both capital expenses and resources, human resources. We had an amazing speaker, two speakers from the Archdiocese about looking at where our religion is going and some of the struggles our religion has had in the past couple of years. We learned from Nick Pranger how to fundraise, and that was incredibly eye-opening. And then you are part of our action plan. So we're going to touch on all of these topics, so that's kind of an outline. So, were any of you lucky enough to know this guy, Monsignor Hupp? Was he just amazing? Okay, because I'm thinking this guy was amazing. This book, The Dawn of New Parish, is available in the rectory. If you haven't read it, it's actually a nice little read, and it's really informative. So Father Robert Hupp was born in Wynot, Nebraska in 1915. He was an associate pastor at several parishes, including St. Margaret Mary's. He was a chaplain in World War II for the Navy, and he founded Christ the King. He was the executive director of Boys Town. He was appointed by Gerald Ford to be a delegate at large to the United Nations, and he was designated a Monsignor in 1985. He passed away in 2003. St. Robert's Church was developed in his honor, so that's why that is called St. Robert's. So I'm sorry to have never met him, but I feel like I know him a little bit. So he was out in the middle of nowhere, and he got this letter from Archbishop Gerald T. Bergen. And in May of 1953, he was told, I really need you to come back and start this new parish. We haven't had a new parish in Omaha for a really long time. I need someone super smart and energetic, and I've chosen you. And he said, okay. So he showed up and he arrived in 1953 June with a used Chevy, his shaggy dog Zeke, his Navy mast kit, and a shotgun. And he bunked in an orphanage, and he tried to start this parish. Now, I would think that he would be given sort of resources and a structure system. No, he got a title to 13 acres of land and said, go. So the ladies of St. Margaret Mary walked the 20 miles, and they developed the parish rolls, and they started getting money. He held the first mass in the Peony Park Dance Hall. So that meant he had to go about an hour early and clean up the trash off the floor from the night before. And the ushers eventually helped him. Does any of you remember the color of the carpet in our church? Many of you remember. What color was our carpet? Yes? It was blue. Do you know why? Because that was the color of the trim at the Peony Park Dance Hall. And so in homage to that, we had that blue carpet, which I remember as a kid coming here and thinking, this is the wildest carpet, but it's gone now. So I wonder if we have a piece of it somewhere. So does anyone recognize this structure? It's our gym, right? Okay. So I can see it here. So I'm going to just read a quote by Monsignor Hub, because when I read this, I thought, well, this is odd. Why would he say this? He said, from my earliest years in seminary, it was very obvious to me that parishes with grade schools were far superior to those without schools. Should I ever be pastor of a parish without a school, I thought I would do my best to build one. For that reason, first priority was given to a school for Christ the King parish. So they built a school first, and after that was done, they moved masses from Peony Park Dance Hall. And by the way, Father Hupp was also driving a bus back and forth, taking kids back and forth to Peony Park. And then they built the parish. And I thought, I liked my parish growing up. We didn't have a Catholic school. What's the big deal about that? And so then I started really diving into the information that Jeff Thiel gave me. And I also read a book about, and I can talk to you about that later, about how Catholic education in America started all the way back to the Pilgrims. But we don't have time for that tonight. So in this information from Jeff Thiel, I read this, and this was very formative to me. It says, the school is a formation ministry as distinct from a service ministry within the parish's overall mission. The school forms students in other academic disciplines, of course, but the school also exists for religious and spiritual formation for the students and their families. The school ministry is, by the church's teaching, meant to reinforce the religious formation started and nurtured in the family, the primary unit of religious formation. And I'm just going to be honest with you. Tony and I lived in this cute little house on 59th Street, and we just had done this big remodel. And I looked at St. Margaret Mary's, and that's a good school, but it was really crowded, and some of my siblings' kids went to Christ the King, and I told them, we should move to Christ the King. It's going to be a great school. I was completely in the private academy mindset. I had no idea the importance of the school and how it all fit in with the parish until I went through this year-long exercise. So for me personally, it was really formative. And if that's how I feel, I'm thinking that maybe some of you out there might have come into it with the same idea. Maybe everyone's just smarter than me on this, but having never been in Catholic education as a kid, I missed the boat on this. So I only put this slide up because we might talk about increasing enrollment a little bit, but if you look, in 1967, there were 900 children in this school. Can you imagine? Do you remember that?
I graduated from class of 72 in 1972.
Was it crowded?
It was just what we went to experience. There was less than 25 kids in the classroom. It's not that bad. We had 3 homerooms of each grade.
Wow.
Through the school.
And a lot of nuns to help, right?
Maybe a third of the faculty at that time.
And nuns, they kind of were inexpensive, right?
Yeah. So
it was easier to staff it. So as part of our review, and I'm not going to read all of this, but I would invite all of you to go to the Christ the King website, where and Brandon has done a really nice job on the website. We've got our mission statements, our belief statements. The committee reviewed the hierarchy of our parish. I'm not going to go through all that. There's a very long report that's going to come with this project when we're done, and we've got all of that outlined in there. And then our school, our mission is preparing Christian leaders through academic excellence in a Christ-centered environment. And so, again, being kind of a novice to all of this, I thought, well, who's in charge of the school? Like, who's over the school? Do you guys know who's over the school? yeah, but who's like, so here's how it goes. So Jeff Thiel, I was in his office, like, can you draw this out for me and I'll make a slide? So this is how we kind of fit in. So there's the bishop, who's actually in charge of everything, right, in the Archdiocese. And then he's got the Catholic Schools Office. We have a Dr. Ashton, who's wonderful. He's our superintendent, who sets the minimum standards, the academic and religious formation standards. And it comes down to the individual school. So Mr. Segrell is the principal. We have an Archdiocese Education Committee that's advisory here. And this is the one my friend Dr. Thiel sits on. And then Father Cook comes in here. He's over Mr. Segrell in the school, and then we've got a bi-directional flow of information. There may be a couple other advisory committees in here, but in general, this is the oversight. So there's a lot of room for individual decisions at the local level because of the different needs and locations and people in the parish. So a lot of information and a lot of what we do, or the school does, is not standardized across the Archdiocese. And that is one of the main problems when we try to dial in and see, well, how do we compare? So I just want to put that out there. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the finances. So these are really high value numbers. These are the 2018-19 budgetary projections. The actual numbers have not been released out of committee yet, but this is what we were going on, so this is what we're presenting tonight. So if you look, you can see that this is roughly a $4 million corporation that is happening right as we are sitting here. And so Father's in charge of that. So in addition to everything else he does, he's running our numbers. And the biggest component of the revenues are tithing at about $2 million. And the second is tuition and fees, okay? So $3.8 million. And employee expenses are our biggest expense, not just at the school, but also at the parish. We have about $660,000 in maintenance, facilities and utilities for an expenditure of 3.9. So I think it's pretty common that, that the expenditures exceed the revenues, and so we have to make up the gap. And luckily, Father did such a great job paying off our debt that we're in a much better position, but that took some effort. Salaries go up by about 3% per year, and benefits have increased by 8% the last 2 years. So there are some costs that are going up, and if any of you own small businesses, you know that those employee expenses go up every year. We've also got some upcoming capital expenditures, and those are also in the handout. So we've got 2019-20, 2019-2022, and also like the wish list, right? If money started raining from the sky, this is what we would like to do. So if you look at the outlay of that, there's about $1.7 million if we had lots of money to do things with. So we put those in there. Now let's talk about school finances. So some of you have seen this. I released this with the survey results. But it costs, for every child in Christ the King, it costs $7,700 per child, okay? So if you are a member of the parish, your tuition is $3,170. We have a multi-child family discount, so the first 2 children are full tuition, the second one's half tuition, and everyone after that is no tuition. There is a gap of $4,530, and this gap has to come from somewhere, or we're going to have to pay full tuition. So Tom McGill did this nice chart. He broke it down, and you can see that the light blue are things that the school families can participate in. So school family tithing pays for 20% of that. Lunch, extended care, and other revenue is 6%. The GAP fund is 2%. So the GAP fund is what Father sends an appeal out for specifically to make up the gap. The Parents and Sports Club also contribute 2%. The Educational Trust, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Ed Trust, we're going to go into that, covers 17%. And non-school family tithing covers 12%. So people who do not have any children in the school are funding 12% of every child's education. Okay? So combined, the Educational Trust and non-school family tithing provide 29% to educate each student. So we're going to look into that a little bit. Oh, without the parish, there could be no school. That makes sense to all of you, right? It's picking up a significant cost of each child's education. So what's the Educational Trust? Everyone on the committee got a copy of the trust documents. I don't know how many of you have ever seen the trust documents, but they look like this. I took pictures of my documents. And in January of 1980, a group of parishioners with amazing foresight thought, well, let's come up with a mechanism to fund some of the operating expenses of the school. and they called it the CTK Educational Trust. And all of these original people signed on, and they had to give $200 to start the trust, so I thank them. And the educational trust structure, I am not a trust attorney, so we did the best we could, but the managing trustee is the pastor. The board of trustees is the pastor plus 15 additional members, and they're representative of various Christ the King committees. It's irrevocable and not voluntarily terminable. There have been 2 amendments. The 1988 amendment added 15 trustees instead of 11, and the 1995 amendment just brought it into compliance with the Archdiocese. So if Christ the King becomes insolvent or goes under, all the funds from the Educational Trust roll into the Archdiocese Education Foundation. Okay, but short of that, this is our money. It can't be touched. I took this word for word, the purpose of the trust. The trust document's pretty long, but there's really only 5 main things that you need to look at. The rest is all legal. Okay, so what is the purpose? It provides supplemental funding of Catholic programs and services in Christ the King Parish. It aids, assists, and fosters in the need for the attainment of and the maintenance of total, organized, comprehensive Catholic educational programs at the parish and or the educational institutional level. It's to encourage a renewed commitment to the Roman Catholic school as the most effective instrument available to teach doctrine, build community, and serve the needs of the Catholic membership in our parish. It provides a depository for gifts and bequests, and it operates within the 501c3 of the IRS. Okay, so this is the purpose of the trust. The original goal of the founders of the trust was to fund 1/3 of the school's operating expense. Currently, it funds 17%. The principal balance is $6 million. I know you guys probably aren't well versed in foundations, as I was not, but you cannot touch the principal. So the principal fluctuates based on the market, and we make interest off of that. It is that interest that then we can use to fund the operating expenses of the school. So it's variable each year, okay? To fund 1/3 of the expenses, the original goal of the trustees, we would need that trust to be about $12 million, so we would have to double the trust. So if anyone wants to write that check right now, we'll just call it good, and we'll go home. Thank you for laughing twice, Father. I was hoping, I'm looking out there. No, but, doubling the trust is a big undertaking, obviously, but it's really important for our school. Okay, so the trust has some restricted use funds. So what does that mean? Of the $6 million, $1 million of the principal are earmarked, okay? So, for example, Anton, my son, got the alumni scholarship. So we got some of our tuition offset, which was great for me, but it didn't do anything for the operating expenses of the school. Okay, so we only have about the interest off of about $5 million, and so then the annual Spice fundraiser dollars go towards the trust. But because we're spending all of the interest and we haven't gotten a lot of infusion into the principal, it's stagnant and we're not really growing that much. So we're sort of stuck at 17%. Okay, this I think to me was one of the most eye-opening parts of this exercise for me. And right, it was kind of about, okay, this is not a private academy, this is actually, you sort of need to be involved in the parish for this to work the best way that it should, Monsignor Hubb's vision. You need to engage with the parish, and what does that mean? And we talked about time, talent, and treasure, so I'm going to talk about treasure. So this is the same year, 2017, or 2018-19 projections. This is information from Rick Kucerik, who's wonderful if any of you have financial questions. This is the annual tithing for the school families. We have no idea who the families are, and Father doesn't know who the families are because he doesn't want to know. He doesn't want that to be involved. But these are the numbers Rick gave me. So you can see that 35 school families tithe not a nickel to the parish, and 65 school families tithe less than $1,000. Now there could be a lot of reasons that half of our school families aren't putting money to the parish. Maybe they have other places they're putting money. Maybe they can't rub 2 nickels together and the most they can do is their time and their talent. And I accept that. But I think that this might actually signal a disconnect. If 17% of families accept in-parish tuition with no parish tithing, and maybe some people are giving cash and it's not tracked, okay? So this is not judgment. This is just, what do people think the school means? Because maybe, and I argued with my husband last night about this, and I'm always right, and he would tell you that. But
He knows.
he knows, yeah. I said, this is my metric for we have a disconnect between the school and the parish. Well, I don't know that you can use that as a metric. Well, I don't know what else to use. This is a fact. So I just asked you to reflect on that a little bit. And, as a committee, we were kind of stymied. So we went back to that 2005 document that I showed you, and we said, okay, what is the purpose of the school? What do the school families think the purpose of the school is? Is it critical for religious and spiritual formation? Or is it critical for formation in academic disciplines? Or is it both? So we thought, well, can't just take a poll because, there's bias in the people I talk to. So we decided to make a survey, and we spent probably 2 months developing this survey. And we developed a list of questions for topics we felt were going to be really important for us to understand. Because, we are the parishioners, we are the school parents, but you guys are really the people that kind of drive it. So we made a list, and then this is my buddy Harlan. He is a lot of fun, because you can tell he's a statistician, and we spent a lot of time together. He is not Catholic, but he was fascinated by all of this. I mean, he was always coming in my office. So I thank him, because he's kind of a survey guru at the University of Nebraska. And we got into SurveyMonkey, and we developed this survey of 5 pages and 20 questions. And so thank you all for doing the survey. We sent it out on January 24th. And there was an over 80% response rate. That's huge. That gives us amazing data. So when you look at internal and external surveys, if you get 40% internally, that's good. If you're in medical literature, if you get over 60% survey response rate, that is pristine. But to get 80 made us feel really good. And it made us feel like you cared. You actually wanted to have a say. And so we thank you. We did both quantitative and qualitative analysis on that. So what do I mean? Quantitative means, well, we just picked how many people said this, so we could give you a number and a percentage. The qualitative part of it, a lot of people wrote a lot of information. So Harlan and I kind of did a thematic analysis, and we're not going to get into the statistics of that, but I felt pretty good by the time we got back to the committee that we knew what we were dealing with. Every single comment that someone took time to type out on their iPhone or on their computer was reviewed by me and at least 1 or 2 other people. Again, we had to stay in our lane. People had a lot to say about a lot of different things. And if it was something on the parish side, it went to Father Cook and Father Boyd. And if it was on the school side, it went to Tom and Mr. Segrell. And the committee, again, didn't kind of intervene in all of those areas. But any feedback is important and needs to be listened to. So we thank you for that. So you've all seen this, because if you read your email, but you get a lot of emails, so we release this information. The one question that we wanted to know the most was, what do you think Christ the King School means? And 66% of you thought that academic excellence is equally as important as spiritual and religious formation. And we thought that was the right answer, so we were glad that we were all kind of there. But 26% thought that probably academic excellence was more important than spiritual formation. That doesn't mean spiritual and religious formation isn't important, but it means that academic excellence was more important. So kind of in that private academy field where I came from. And then others thought that spiritual and religious formation was more important than academic excellence, so 7%. So those are the numbers, and that helped inform us. To these questions, 1, the school could remain afloat fiscally without support from the parish. Well, the majority of you disagreed with that. So that's good. We were trying to figure out, do we need to educate people a little more? Because education is powerful, and there are no bad actors in this. They're just sometimes, like I was, uninformed. The school could remain fiscally solvent or fiscally afloat without support from the trust. Okay, people understood the trust was important. What about an increase in the current funding sources in order to retain one of our greatest assets, which is our faculty, our teachers? Yeah, people said, yeah, we need to get more money to pay people. And then this one, would you be willing to pay more money? They actually said, yes, we will pay more tuition. Okay? We were feeling pretty good. School family participation in the parish is important to merit the parish's continued funding of the school. The majority of people, so red and blue here, agreed. Christ the King School is meeting my needs. Again, the majority agreed. And Christ the King Parish is meeting my needs. The majority agreed. So we thought, okay, we're doing things right. Nobody has seen these numbers yet. I did not release these. So this was kind of an extra thing that we wanted to know in terms of at least engagement in the parish. Does your family attend Mass? Every week or almost every week? 58%, okay? Where do you go? Christ the King, 71%. Do you go to reconciliation? And I have to say that after your beautiful Tuesday nights, Mary and I are going to be lined up. Father gave this wonderful talk on reconciliation, but it was great. But no, 57% of us do not regularly go to reconciliation. And then communication is constantly a theme. Some people say communication's great. Some people say communication's not so good. So we were trying to figure out how to improve communication. So people want email. Okay. So what about the thematic analysis? Well, we have some real strengths in our school. Academic excellence. I mean, our teachers and our administrators do a great job teaching our kids how to read, write, do math, all of that. That's wonderful. The faith formation is also excellent. I learn things from my kids all the time. Things I should probably know. Our faculty are the biggest blessing, the biggest asset, the biggest resource. That was a common theme. We have a vibrant and engaged community. Okay? These are good things. We can always do better, so where? Communication, a big one. There is a fear out there that our teachers will leave because we aren't going to pay them enough, because the culture is not right. I don't know. There is just, this is a big concern. There were lots of comments on liturgical style options, and those went to Father, and he's made some changes, and we'll talk about that. And then there were comments about our culture. And I'm not gonna, I had a slide in here and I took it out, but kind of a lack of civility has been normalized in our society. And I'm not talking about politics, I'm talking about driving to the grocery store and I get honked at and nobody seems to give each other the benefit of the doubt. But we, people, can kind of be mean to other people, us, to teachers, to students, and it's not okay. Our kids parrot our words, they imitate our behaviors, they internalize our worldview. And we are a Christian Catholic community, and I challenge myself every day to do better after this, and I would challenge all of you to do the same, that we need to be thoughtful of each other and our children and how we act and what we say. So I am as guilty as anyone else in the room. That's all I'm going to say on that. That was a theme in the survey. I think it's real everywhere. This is not unique to us. I would just hope we could do better. So what about the teachers? So Mr. Sibrel and Mrs. Keenan did a survey to ask the teachers what they needed. And so 28 teachers did the survey, and their number one concern was having benefit stability, okay? So having salary stability, knowing that they're going to have cost of living increases and everything else that they need. They needed support positions, okay? Mr. Sibrel helped me. IEP, Individual Educational Plan. Okay, so an IEP is to help children who need additional help for various reasons. We want to give the children the support we need. We don't have the resources that a public school has, but we do have some resources. So if you live in District 66 and your child has extra needs, Westside sends people over to help, which sounds amazing, and it is, but that requires a lot of coordination on behalf of our teachers and pulling teachers out of different places. And so they said a resource specialist could really help with that. And then teacher aides, particularly in some of the younger kids' rooms, would be good. And then teacher development. So, a lot of our teachers have teaching degrees, they know how to do that. But they get extra training in faith formation, how to teach our children the faith formation. So they were doing School of Faith before, and I'm trying not to show what has changed, but Mr. Sibrel and Mrs. Becker have done this really amazing thing, and I'm sure he'll talk to you about it, but changed School of Faith, which the teachers went to previously, into real time, and I think it's been really well received. So those are the three of the things that they wanted. So now let's talk about salary information. So again, there's a standard structure among public and parochial schools, at least in terms of how salary is determined. There is a base pay established by your education level from a bachelor's through a master's, and there's a step pay based on your years of service with these milestones, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30. So you get an automatic 1.5% increase per year with an additional 1.5% increase when you attain the milestones, but the base pay may not change, okay? So what's our salary range at Christ the King? So I really want you to reflect on the 31, 5, 10, because if you break it down monthly, that would be really challenging, I think, for many people to live on. Yet these are what our teachers are doing. They're really important. So that's a starting salary. I was just asking Mr. Segrell what it is in public schools, and it's not that much more. And then if you have over 30 years experience and a master's degree, it's about $64,000. So just reflect on those numbers. That's what our teachers are doing for us at that kind of pay. Okay. How about the benefits? 95% single, so individual, and 50% family medical benefits. And I'm going to show you the comparators that we have too. This is just kind of what we have, because it's a really nice benefits package. We have a 403B retirement where they can get an automatic 3% with no waiting period. And then if they choose to to contribute an additional 3%, then we match them, so a maximum of 9%. They get a 10% tuition discount. 10% tuition discount per year with a maximum of 50%. Disability insurance, 6 days of paid time off, and there's a 30-day rollover, so you can cash that out upon separation. They get student lunch prices, and when I'm in the lunch line, if I see a teacher come through, I really pile it on. And the one day that I've done lunch duty, I'll let you know next time. That was another great idea I had to do lunch duty. No, it's been good. And then free before and after care, which could be huge for people with several children that require before and after care. And it's here. So how do we compare? Again, if comparator compensation information exists, it was not readily available. So when we talk about kind of the whole picture, it's compensation, so what your salary is, what your benefits are, and what your culture is, in terms of how do the teachers feel about staying on and not going elsewhere, okay? So we're going to dial in on these two. We've talked a little bit about culture. So there are these advisory groups, and Mr. Segrell, please correct me if I'm wrong, where he can meet with principals and administrators from other schools, and they sort of, I don't know if it's more of a support group as well, or they just bounce ideas off of each other. So it's called a deanery, and there are 8 schools in our deanery, and then he got 4 additional schools to contribute information, trying to get as much as we could. And many of them are similar in demographics and location. And he asked them about their total compensation. And again, it's not standardized, but all the administrators were very interested in getting this information, so I think everyone tried to participate, but it is very hard to compare. So, compared among 12 Catholic schools, with us included, how about the salary? So, a new teacher who makes about $31,000, and you add the benefits on, so single rate medical. Last year we were 4th out of 12, and this year we're 3rd out of 12, because our teachers did get some raises, which is great. Now, the seasoned teacher that we talked about, in 2018-2019, we ranked 6th out of 12, and in 1920, we ranked 5 out of 12. Okay? So maybe it wasn't as bad as we thought, but still we could do better. And the ones out west compete with Millard, have higher number of students per classes, so 30 kids in a classroom instead of 20. How about the benefits? This is what we have, I showed you. Among all the schools compared, we have the best medical package available, okay? Single benefits for the compared schools range from 50 to 95%, we're at 95%. And family benefits, 7 schools did not offer any family benefits. 65% in one school, but they didn't give a 95% to the individual, they only gave a 70%, okay? So we thought we have pretty good medical benefits. How about retirement? We had the best retirement package among the 12 schools. No other schools offered a similar match and require a waiting period. We had the highest tuition discount at 50%. Many schools have no tuition discount. We're the only school to offer reduced lunch prices. I don't know if that matters. My sister said that doesn't matter so much. I'm like, I have spent a lot of money on salad, and if I got a cheaper lunch, that'd be good. Before and after care, we're the only one to offer before and after care. So then we said, how do we get our head around this? And so Tim Braun, I said, well, you're the numbers guy on this committee. Can we put a number on what that's worth? And we thought maybe roughly $3,000. Now remember, some teachers don't take the medical because maybe their spouse has better medical. Maybe they don't have kids. Maybe they don't like school lunch. So not all of the teachers are participating in all of the benefits available, but that's a really individualized situation. But some of the teachers could significantly benefit from it. So that's kind of where we stood with the teachers. So pretty good benefits package, pretty low salaries. I think we could all agree. And I know that if, again, my dream of money raining from the sky happened, Father and Mr. Segrell would be happy to pay the teachers more. They're worth it. Then we thought, well, it's just been kind of hard to be a Catholic for the past couple of years. There's been a lot of stuff that's really kind of pulled at our heartstrings, and I know it's made me question, and we wanted to figure out what all of that was about. And so Jen Moser, who is one of our parishioners, and Andy Dyka from the Archdiocese Office of Evangelization and Catechesis, sorry, my spacing's off, came and spoke with us. And I would encourage Father to have them come back here and for all of you to come and listen to what they have to say. It was fascinating. So they asked us, the first question they asked us was, in the setting of the most transformative period of history, with respect to increasing secularism and social movements, how do we adapt and spread the gospel within the modern and rapidly changing world? I got nothing. It was like, what are we going to talk about here? So let's talk about it. There are 1 million people living in our archdiocese, okay? 235,000 of them are baptized and registered Catholics. Out-migration is outpacing in-migration. So we're just not having as many babies. People are moving to Sarpy County, you know, and so we're not melting, we're shrinking, okay? Now, I very purposely put the Wicked Witch up here because I saw that as a kid and I kind of had this negative visceral reaction to the witch. And I kind of had the same negative visceral reaction when we talked about this. So there's a decreasing religious affiliation, with 6 times as many leaving the church compared to entering it, 4 times as many becoming unaffiliated compared to becoming religious. And school parents, Generation Z, those are our kids, they're becoming atheists. And I just told you I kind of struggle with faith sometimes, but I surely don't want my children to struggle with faith, because it's what's going to stay them when they have the absolute worst times of their lives that are coming for everybody. And I thought, geez, that's really frightening to me. And so I tried to dial into this and look, and there are books written out there for targeting teenagers to talk to them about what's it going to be like to be an atheist if you choose this. And so to me, I thought, this is really a red flag. This really is something that we need to think about very carefully. So, if I'm going to sum it up for you a little bit, the parish and the school are one family, one economic entity with upcoming expenses that exceed the current sources of revenue. The purpose of the school is twofold: religious and academic formation. This is not a private academy. The school cannot exist without parish support. The enrollment and the well-being of the school moves in sync with that of the parish, and the demographics of our religion are changing. Overall, Christ the King Parish, Christ the King School are doing so many things right. So I focus kind of on the problems, but in general, we are a very healthy, engaged, vibrant, successful parish and school. But I also think you can always do better. And I really struggled, I lost a little bit of sleep, trying to figure out, why can't I come up with the conclusion, the aha moment? And I think it's because we're dealing with 2 really different concepts, right? We've got the intangibles or the abstracts. Your attitudes, beliefs, perceptions, cultures, your relationship with God, your faith. Who am I to stand up here and tell any of you how to act or what to believe? That I can't. And then, concrete. I got numbers, projections, stats, history. I can tell stories about Monsignor Hupp. You're like a plant, I thank you. But that's where I live. That's where I'm comfortable. It's this where I'm very uncomfortable, because I don't have any good answers other than just to talk about it. So what I ask of each of you here is to kind of reflect about the intangibles. Just think about how they might inform the concrete going forward. Do you guys kind of get that? Do you buy into it? You know what I'm trying to say? Okay. So we, not me, Mr. Segrell, Father Cook, Father Boyd, have already had some changes in response to the family surveys and school surveys. So communication has been an issue. So the Educational Steering Board has established a subcommittee on communication and public relations. Teacher salaries have increased approximately 10% over the past 2 years. I think they maybe had a 4 and then a 6% increase. Still like to do more. We have Kindness 2019-20 theme is building relationships with God, self, and others with new expectations for families. Again, we can all do better. There's a differentiated mass style. I've checked out the new masses. They are as described. And I think there are more people in the pews, so I'm really excied about that. Mr. Segrell has worked on the teacher schedules, tried to simplify them, make common plan times. It doesn't work for everyone, but they're thinking about it. And then we've got the replace the faith component of the teacher in service with new approach at the teacher's request. So we're like saying, we hear you. Okay, so how do we fix it? Okay, well, I can't fix the intangibles because that's Father's life work and he's going to work on that. But, we have to, it'd be great to increase revenues. So how do we increase revenues? Well, we could increase tuition. We could just ask everyone to pay $7,700 and that would be done. But we just don't want to do that. And no child or family should be denied a Catholic education based on the ability to pay. We will find the money. It's really important. But we need to have balanced and thoughtful increases. And we did not, as a committee, think that that multi-child family discount should change. It's actually pretty small in overall dollars. So we can increase enrollment, not to 900, but we're currently at 357, including preschool. We could accommodate more students, so it would have low marginal costs. We could increase diversity, which would be wonderful, keep a small classroom feel, and the teachers were asked specifically about this. Would you be okay if the classroom size increased? And they were. We need to understand the critical role of parish tithing for school support. Okay, it's really important. We need to continue our current efforts, and we do a great job. We're all motivated to do this. But overall, this is only covering a small percent of 2% of the cost to educate our students. But thank you, and yes, we're doing a good job. We need a significant infusion of monies into the educational trust. So we thought, well, how about a capital campaign? Just let's do it. It sounds great. We would really recommend unrestricted funds to the principal, because if you tie the hands of the Board of Trustees, they cannot delegate the funds where they need to be. So how about a capital campaign? Yeah, it sounds like a good idea until I heard about what it was, and I thought, whoa, we got to be ready for this. So Nick Piner came, and he said you need to determine your needs. You can usually raise 2.5 times the offertory. You got to hire a firm, $15,000 just to study it, and then $80,000 to $100,000 for the campaign. You'll have a staff member on site to help. It takes about 6 months. There's an early silent phase where they're actually raising money. We want to be successful. And then this is the active phase. So you got to form committees. You need about 130 volunteers. Each volunteer has to agree to meet. We have 1,200 parishioners or families. You got to meet with people. You have to ask them for money. I said, what? I'm not going to go to people I've never met and ask them for money. And he said, no, we'll teach you how to do that. I thought, oh, okay. And then I thought, I can do this. This is important, you know? But he said, the bottom line, this is a huge effort. And the parish needs to be mentally, emotionally, and fiscally, financially prepared to engage. And that volunteer fatigue can be real. So I'm going to take a little break, and then I'll be ready if we decide to go that route, to go out and hit you guys all up for money. But this could be really important, but we need to be thoughtful about it. So our wrap up and final recommendations. So we want your feedback. Again, this is not the SVC's committee, parish, school. This is your school, your parish. Talk to us. Tell us what we're missing, what we've forgotten, what you need. And then we want to figure out if we can recommend some mechanisms and a timeline to accomplish the promotion of parish engagement, increasing enrollment thoughtfully, and the consideration of a capital campaign. And again, I do thank Mr. Segrell and all the teachers who make Christ the King School such a wonderful place, and for Father Boyd and Father Cook for really trying to evangelize those of us who were only possibly catechized. And I'm going to leave you with a message from Pope Francis, just to reflect on. And he says, I invite all Christians everywhere at this very moment to a renewed personal encounter with Jesus Christ, or at least an openness to letting him encounter them. I ask all of you to do this unfailingly each day. No one should think that this invitation is not meant for him or her or any of you out there, since no one is excluded from the joy brought by the Lord. So, this was very formative for me personally. I learned a lot, and I hope that this talk has been informative for many of you. If you have more interest in digging into surveys, the educational trust, the demographic of the church finances, we have more data than you would ever want to see, and we have about a 50-page report that will also be available as well. And so I thank you for coming, for participating, for being here, part of our parish and our school.